Hi, everybody. Welcome to the panel on allyship. Why hospitality and allyship go hand in hand. Since we're a small group, how about, do people feel okay about moving up a little bit? Anyone want to move up a little bit just to make it a little cozier here? Yeah, you can still leave. Yeah, if you don't want to be here, we won't give you a hard time. All right. If anyone wants to move up during the talk, that's fine too. So hospitality is a really diverse industry, but of course, as you get to leadership, it gets less so. And this talk today is about allyship and how those of us who are maybe in marginalized groups can be helped by others who are in more of the bigger group, let's say. So that's the importance of allyship. We will get into the definition of what it really means, but before I do that, I want to introduce our panel today, and I'll start with you, Alessandra.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you for having me, and welcome everyone. So my name is Alessandra Alonso, and I run a social enterprise called Women in Travel, which is actually travel and tourism and hospitality, but for short, Women in Travel, CIC. And we harness the power of travel and hospitality to economically empower women, all women, so women, non-binary, anyone who identifies as woman, through employability and entrepreneurship in the sector. And allyship is a topic really, really close to our heart, not only because I guess that Women in Travel feels and the team feels very much sort of allies, and the allyship is our role, but because also we run a male allyship network, and we do a lot of things around allyship that we are going to introduce a little bit later on.
Yeah.
So thank you very much again.
Yeah, thank you. And Gavin, go ahead.
Yep. Hello. Thank you for having me here, and thank you for all coming. My name's Gavin, and I am the hotel manager at One Aldwych, which is an independent hotel for those of you that don't know it. That's in Covent Garden, and yeah, absolutely. Nothing else to say on that.
All right. Thanks, Gavin. Chris, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Of course. My name is Chris King. My pronouns are they or she. I am the CEO and founder of Lightning Travel Recruitment, non-binary, finery, ADHD babe, and general travel industry disruptor. So it's going to be fun today on this talk, let's say that.
Yeah, we're definitely looking forward to having a good conversation. And I didn't introduce myself. My name's Emily Goldfischer, and I am the editor and founder of Hertelier, which is a media platform for women that work in hotels. So I'm really excited to see everyone and just get into it. So allyship, what does it mean? What does it mean to be an ally to someone? It's definitely a term that's getting a lot of play in the news lately, and we're going to talk about a survey that's just been done of UK workers. But one of the definitions that I like, that I've read about, is that to be an ally, you need to provide support and assistance to your colleagues. You need to be curious about the things that make us different, and then to celebrate and appreciate those differences. And with that, I'm going to ask Gavin to maybe start with his definition of what it means to be an ally.
Thank you. So I really think to be an ally is someone that is able to sort of actively listen to people, get to know people in the organization, especially in the hotel. There's different levels in the hotel, and I think it's really important, that whole listening piece, understanding of others, but actually being present in the room when they're talking to you, and getting to know what some of their challenges are, and then bringing those challenges forward and finding solutions, or trying to find solutions, but yeah, being a professional problem solver with those things. But giving people a voice, as you said, that don't necessarily have a voice. And we're lucky in our sort of organization that we're small, our team is small. and we're able to bring those voices right from the floor up to our general manager, Janine,
Right.
very rapidly, and make decisions of things that will have a positive impact on them and help people sort
Yeah.
of instantaneously. It doesn't have to go through levels and levels of people. So we're lucky in that way, and I think we act on
Yeah,
those
not a
things.
lot of layers to go through in a small organization.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Chris?
I've actually written down some points because I'm going to go off topic. So
Yeah, okay.
ADHD is a joy. So if I do go, pull me back.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, I think firstly I want to say we're not going to go through in this talk everything about allyship. There is so many nuances and multifaceted opinions on this topic. So I just wanted to keep it as short and sweet as possible. For me, allyship is being active in your support of other people. That is it at its purest. Silence is complicity. If you are not actively supporting minority groups, you are complicit to the I was about to swear and I stopped myself, to the things that those people in those communities may encounter. It's recognizing that we all have privilege. And I think that was something that even myself as a trans neurodiverse person, it took me a while to realize that even I have privilege. It's important that we don't try and speak on behalf of communities that we are not part of, and we recognize that they have their own struggles. And by providing a platform to those people, that doesn't mean we're giving away our slice of the pie. It's a fear factor with allyship. People often think if someone else is given a platform, it takes away from what you have. It doesn't. It gives those people a platform, it empowers them and makes their voices louder, which is what those communities need ultimately. It's also, allyship is educating yourself. I think a lot of people think that, oh, it's your job as a trans person to educate me. No, it's not. I will share my stories, but it is ultimately up to you to want to support these people. Go away, find information, and educate yourself. So that's allyship to me in its purest form.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I have some interesting data that dovetails on that, but do you want to go now, or should I say that data?
I guess that just picking up on what Chris just said, I think what really resonates with me is that an ally should never sort of be conspicuous. An ally doesn't take the space of the person or the group. He, she, they are actively wanting to support. So for me, an example of allyship is about providing someone, an individual, with an opportunity they may not otherwise have. Rather than say, I'm going to go and speak, I'm going to give this opportunity to someone who perhaps is normally not vocal.
Yeah.
So there is a very strong intention, I hope you agree, in allyship.
Yeah.
And people have to be aware. But also, as Chris said, anyone can be an ally to someone else.
Yeah.
So that is also very, very important to remember, because we all have a role to play in allyship.
Yeah. So recognizing your privilege and then listening also, I guess, is a big piece of that. Interestingly, there has recently been a study of over 5,000 employees in the UK, not in hospitality, but in construction, which is also an industry that I think suffers with a lack of allyship. And what they found, I thought, was really interesting, because it said just 1/3 of UK employees felt they've spoken up. So that's really the issue Chris was saying, is if you see somebody being marginalized, speaking up to help them. And yet, when they interviewed people, are you a good ally? 7 out of 10 people said that they were. So there's a real disconnect there between people thinking what their intent is and then translating that into action. So I just thought that one of the biggest challenges becomes, how do you deal with this bias in the workplace? And I mean, I don't know, Gavin, maybe you have an example of when you've helped someone in an allyship opportunity?
Yeah. No, I think recently, we come across different things where people come to us all the time, which is great. We pride ourselves on sort of being very transparent and sort of inclusive with people, and giving, as you said, giving people a voice and understanding that there's different levels of privilege to be able to act on things. So one that comes to mind most recently is a lady in our organisation who's, she's a single mum. She's got some. She's a manager in the business, so she has great responsibility in the business. She has a team to take care of, and obviously, the hotel means it's 24/7. So her job doesn't stop. So she needs to look after her children at the same time. So she asked for a certain amount of flexibility in her work, of what she could do, when she could come to work, and we were able to act on that very quickly, as show that we were allies towards her or with her, giving her that opportunity to change it for her. There was no big drama about it. It didn't have to go through layers and layers of people to get approval for this. We were able to make this change, which is, I suppose, a small change for us, really, but it's made a massive impact on her. But she was able to have that voice, and well, indeed, she says now it's made a huge impact on her. And but if she hadn't been able to be vocal about it, I don't think we wouldn't have seen that change needed to be made for her. She was able to come to us, feel comfortable with that, and yeah, absolutely.
So there is definitely an atmosphere where she felt okay to speak to you openly about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
And that's, I think that's a key thing that we're all sort of talking about. Can you create that culture of, transparency and trust between different people on all levels and all ways? Because, it's easy for big corporations to put words on the wall of diversity, inclusion, and actually no one really, some of those businesses, no one really understands what it means, or they think they do. So it's important that people actually believe it and understand it and have the desire to want to do it. That's how I feel about it anyway. And it's,
That's
absolutely
fantastic. Chris, you're nodding your head. So
I was
the
doing
culture
a
piece
click.
is what really got you going. So why don't you speak about that?
Great point. People do not see diversity and inclusion and culture as the same thing, and they really should. You can have an amazing ally in senior leadership, and if you don't have the support of the CEO or the marketing team, then what they're doing is just batting their head against a brick wall consistently. I think I've got so much to say on this. I'm going to try and keep it as short as possible. I guess from an LGBT perspective, everyone is woo, queer, yay, love it in Pride Month. September, where are the gays? Nowhere. No one cares. And that's the same for it's Black History Month now. We don't just want 1 month. We want people to look at HR policy, support the staff you have. Have you got minority groups in your senior leadership team? Are you consistently putting comms out to support those people? It's not done in hospitality. And the brands that are doing it, there's a stat I read the other day that said if you bring in LGBT people, you bring in the disabled community, and you bring in people from ethnic minority backgrounds, that represents a shareholder of 39% of customers in our industry. And we're not looking at it in the hospitality industry. We're looking at those people as marginalized communities. Now, the brands that are going to flourish are brands that look at allyship and really take a step forward and start going, hey, we need to start supporting these groups. We need to start giving to these charities. We need to start doing workshops and educating our staff. There's a direct link between queer people and mental health. And that's a whole nother conversation. But brands need to be doing it at the top level, but also people in their organizations need to be given support and a platform as allies to support the staff within their business.
Yeah.
That's as short as I can keep it.
Yeah.
Can I make a comment
go
on
ahead,
this?
Alessandra.
So again, picking up on Chris, you're fantastic at
Yeah.
helping me formulate my messages or thoughts. But I think there's a number of things here. First of all, much abused word, but authenticity, we are going back to that. Because ultimately, if the culture, the transparency, and that ongoing and constant sort of allyship behavior isn't role modeled across the organization, you are going to be caught, as people have been for Black Lives Matter. And, you know, after putting the black square out there, they kind of wash their hands off it. So, and that will have a hugely negative impact, not just on your ability to retain and attract talent, but also on your broader stakeholder community, your client, your customers, your suppliers, society around you, those people who add value to your brand just by being there. And secondly, I think once again, you know, allyship, sort of if we look at the broader diversity and inclusion space, we know now that it makes commercial sense. It's not just about the moral argument, it's about the commercial argument. So that is why it's important that when you talk about allyship, you don't just limit that to your staff. Of course, internal, if your house isn't in order, you can't do the rest. But it's actually about, you know, how do I show this allyship to all the people in the sort of hotel or business ecosystem that I touch every day.
Yeah.
And that's obviously, that's a lot more commitment, but that's where authentic brand versus sort of performative brand will show.
Which makes me think of the article that Chris just wrote for Condé Nast Traveler about Virgin getting. Why don't you speak a little bit about that, about the choice of uniforms?
Yeah, so quick show of hands. Who has seen the new Virgin campaign? There we go. The new Virgin campaign. It's an incredible campaign run by Lucky Generals and the Diversity Standards Collective. And basically it allows whatever sex, whatever gender that you identify as, you can wear whatever clothes you want, which is fantastic. And what's so fantastic as a case study is that they've not just done it as a PR stunt. They've brought in, through Diversity Standards Collective, a representation from the trans community. They have asked their opinion on how to make this good. How can it be impactful to the wider company? They have actually changed their internal policies to support people transitioning from the trans community. They are giving mental health support to people. They are also looking at their internal policies. And that is how to do a really hard-hitting campaign. It's not speaking on behalf of people. It's making change. And listen, allyship, sometimes you're going to have to be the first. It's so great that we have a platform here, and thank you for giving this platform. But this, at the moment, with ED&I, it is an add-on. And companies should be seeing this as growing it at their core. If you're part of a small brand right now, you should be getting on board, I can't think of the word. You should be getting on board diverse people to consult for you and your brand, so you are speaking to everyone. You should not be speaking as one voice for everyone. And I think that's the key thing for allyship here.
Yeah, which is why I really liked also that Celebrity Cruises campaign, which I learned about at your conference. If you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, of course, it's not my campaign, but what we saw there, they have created a repertoire of pictures which they have then subsequently made available to the entire industry, so whoever can go and download them, of really diverse customer. So that, again, when you are representing your brand, you are truly sort of represented the entire range of individual people, customer, again, suppliers, staff that sort of there are out there. And again, when people look and see themselves in people's sort of environment, marketing, and they understand that there is a genuine desire for representation, they immediately pick it up. I think Chris is nodding and
The inclusion piece. I
absolutely
think,
the
is-
inclusion
yeah.
piece, and that again, that's about
Yeah.
the true allyship, and
Yeah.
I think that again, perhaps we kind of, as we started to talk, we didn't really give the public or the audience today much context, but I assume that everyone understands that, because we've been talking about it for some time in industry now, that allyship matters because of all the people out there who are waiting to see what you are going to do to include them. And if you do, then they're going to be your best customer, your best employee, your best staff. So I think, again, the business case, why are we talking about allyship? Because hospitality is diverse by definition, but is it really? Let's look around this space. How diverse are we and how inclusive are we? We've got to keep asking that question.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I would just encourage you to check out that Celebrity Cruises campaign because it's totally free to use and you can download any photos you want. And it's all just different travel pictures. They had Andy Leibovitz take some photos. I mean, they're really good quality and it's totally free. So I know a lot of you run smaller properties. So it's just a resource you might want to look into. And then in terms of what else we wanted to talk about today, we've shared some personal stories. I mean, where do you think there's opportunity for the industry to improve? I don't know if you want to start with that one, Gavin.
Sure. Well, no, I think as a sort of a collective on, especially with the hotel industry, is that it has to be. I think the point has been made along the way is that there is a long way to go. There's a long way to go. And to be truly inclusive, I suppose, on all areas, the Virgin Atlantic thing is the perfect thing. If we allow or in the position to feel very confident and comfortable with, people wearing different uniforms, within a sort of a selection or of whatever they feel most comfortable in, whatever they feel makes their personality shine through. I mean, we said, and diverse by, default is what the wording you used. But yes, I think that's, the hotel industry is very good at, serving people and having people come in and educating on how to maybe treat different guests, how to use the right, wording. But I still feel very strongly that it's got to get better from a people standpoint, from the people that you're actually are making your business every day, that are running it. They're the ones that are on the floor. They've got to feel comfortable in themselves, and we need to give them the platform to do that. And the Virgin Atlantic thing, it actually blows me away. It's a very sort of personal thing for me, I suppose, as well, because as I was mentioning, with regards to school uniforms even, and what my children would feel comfortable wearing, we're a long way off in that.
Yeah.
But that's something that's, it's out there. So it's across a wide range, and we're not. I don't think as a society we're fully comfortable with that thing yet. Everyone still has a little bit of, we have to conform with this, or the fear factor. So how do we remove that fear factor?
Well,
and I think we can help with our employees to do that.
Yeah.
Remove that fear factor.
Yeah.
There's no idea that's wrong.
Yeah.
It's an idea that you can bring forward.
Do you think a lot of it's unconscious, though, that people just aren't used to thinking about it? And that's why discussions like this are so important, because then we're just raising awareness of the whole idea of allyship. Or do you think, there's, purpose and intent, but there's also this big hurdle that's just all the unconscious behaviors that people have? I mean, Chris, maybe you have a thought on that.
I've got so much to say.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm going to keep it as short as possible. Ultimately, our bodies are being regulated across the world right now, and I have a particular ick with uniforms, and I do think hotels can be a lot better with it. There are some hotels that are better than others. especially just talking on behalf of the trans community, being told that we have to wear something, I choose to wear this because this is who I am. And I always say when I'm doing keynotes, I choose my happiness over my safety. And the second I wake up and look at my wardrobe, I'm not just picking an outfit. I'm thinking, right, I'm wearing heels today. I'm going to have to get a cab because like hell am I running down the street if I get attacked in these, trust and believe. And it's little things like that you just don't think about, that trans people have to just think about their safety from the second they get out of bed in the morning. And I think safety is something that we haven't touched upon just yet. As a recruiter, holds for applause, I guess I have to talk about showcasing your brand as a safe environment for minority communities. And that starts from the application process. It starts from, if I went for a job interview at your hotel, how are they going to say hi to me? And unfortunately, the standards that a lot of five-star hotels run by are Forbes standards, and they tell people to go hi sir or hi madam.
Yeah.
I don't fit in that. So ultimately, I'm on the back foot, and our industry isn't supporting people that don't fit the wider collective, basically.
Yeah.
So there's lots of work to be done, and
Chris, before you move on from
Sorry.
that point, so as we're sitting with a room of hoteliers, like what is the best way to deal with that? You've made the mistake, right? You've said, sir, may I take your bags? What is the best way to recover from that?
Yeah, it goes from person to person, and this is a great point about allyship. If I feel comfortable in a safe space, I would choose to correct that person and move on. It's not a big deal. But for example, I was at an awards night on Friday, and the woman next to me just kept misgendering me. And I kept saying no, and she was like, I don't believe in pronouns, I don't have time for that. And also in some situations, my colleagues will know how to gender me, but I might not feel comfortable in that. So never speak on behalf of the person, but what you can do is, if it carried on and I didn't speak up, maybe you'd go, oh yeah, Chris, they. And do it subtly like that. It doesn't always need to be an all-out attack on people. But yeah, it's constant microaggressions. Does everyone know what microaggressions are? Some people are nodding.
Yeah.
Microaggressions are, you can walk down the street and someone gives you some daggers for absolutely no reason. And that really, by the end of the day, you're just exhausted from it. So it's our responsibility as a hospitality industry to create a safe environment. And that starts with recruitment. I know a lot of trans people that have issues. The second you go onto a HR form on a internal recruitment website for hotels, the only options are Mr. or Miss.
Yeah.
Straight away, that's not a safe space for a trans person. And I have lots of trans friends that worry that they're just going to get misgendered on a video call. And that there is tech that can very easily take that unconscious bias out of it. And I can see you nodding, Alessandra. Yeah. Your collective have the same issues, right?
No, absolutely. And I think also, Chris, that these are such quick wins, because ultimately, I do believe that sometimes, when we speak about these things, we talk about these things all the time. But for people who are perhaps dipping in and out at conference of events, whether it's allyship, whether it's diversity, it can feel quite daunting. But actually often, the small steps, the small change are the big change. They make the big difference. Because, for example, pronoun, and I put my hands up, I should have said my pronoun, which are she and her. But, if you give someone the opportunity to say, which pronouns would you like me to use? You've already conquered, a customer. You've won them over already, because it's unlikely that they will be used to that kind of question. No? Yeah. So that's where I think, if you look at allyship in bite size, if you look at allyship in what it means in practical little steps, whether it's speaking up, whether it's about the microaggression point that is so important to say, that wasn't banter. That's not okay. That happens a lot to women, for example. That isn't funny. I'm sorry, that was wrong. So please avoid comments like this or jokes like that. So those small sort of act of allyship mean a lot to the people who experience it, but also from a business viewpoint, they only take a little bit of awareness and self-education, as Chris was saying right at the beginning.
Yeah. I don't know if you had another point on your list there, Chris, that you wanted.
Yeah, I got so many points. I think one thing that I really wanted to stress to everyone today was, if you take one thing away from this, language matters. Language matters, and I can give so many examples about it. It's not just pronouns, because everyone always is like, oh, we've heard the pronouns thing. It matters to so many people. Like, the difference between talking about the Black community in writing and people not using a capital B, it's just such a microaggression. The color Black is a lowercase b, the Black community is an uppercase. And I've got so many of my friends that are like, well, I sent you that copy, why have you not done it? And like, oh, it's not a big deal, but it is. It's erasing that. It's completely erasing it. And it's exactly the same with pronouns as well. If you can make your job spec completely gender neutral, there doesn't need to be a gender on it. It's just such a quick win. And we hear a lot about how, oh, we don't have the budget, we're a small team. Taking gender out of job specs or out of copy is incredible. It's just such a quick win. If you take one thing away, language, how you use that language makes a huge impact.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great takeaway. Anything else you wanted to add before we move to questions? Or, what's next? I mean, is that, what do we see? I mean, hopefully more people, as we've raised the conversation and talked about the different challenges that people walk away and go back to their hotels and see what, as you say, one thing they can do. Is there any other key points that you want people to leave this session with before we open it up? Oh, go ahead, Alessandra.
Sorry, I think I have to make the most of sitting here to talk just briefly about the Male Allyship Network. So this is a network that we created last year, supported by about 30 really senior male leaders in industry and across the industry. And the reason why we created this is because we felt that often men, senior leaders who are men, shy away from the conversation around diversity, allyship, inclusion, because they feel often cornered, often sort of they are going to put their foot wrong. They are going to be judged because they are very often white, middle class, male. Now, we feel that if you want to have a really inclusive conversation, everyone's is included. And so actually the white middle class male senior leader who are in position of influence, who can impact and make the difference, are truly important to engage in those conversations. So if there is anyone here interested in sort of this concept of male allyship and how you as an individual can be a male ally, please do come and talk to us. It's a network, so obviously there's networking, then you are matched with a mentees, and you are sort of acting as a role model. And I can tell you that a lot of the people that we have seen joining are telling us, actually, this is reverse mentoring. I'm learning so much from the people I mentor and I support and I'm an ally to. So I think, it's not just about giving. There is also as much taking on the other side if you are open-minded to be an ally in true fashion.
I remember that from hearing them speak, that the men were saying how much they got out of the experience. So that's a great takeaway. And I think Chris has one more point.
Final point, I promise. just firstly, thank you to everyone for turning up to this session today. It's so great to see everyone so engaged. And I think one thing I really want to do right now is, if you are here and you've got an interest in this topic, is to really empower you all and just say, it is okay if you F up with campaigns. I think the biggest hindrance to people when they want to do something positive as an ally to communities is being scared of getting it wrong. Let me say, I have got some things wrong. Trust and believe, and I'm still here, and I'm not cancelled. It's how, well, not to my knowledge anyway. Only in 31 countries, I think. But it's a case of, as long as you are involving people in these discussions and you are doing it for the right reasons, if you do make a mistake in a campaign you run, it's okay. It's how you handle it. It's then going, do you know what? We're then going to give some money to a trans charity, to a different charity. We're going to bring in a speaker. We're going to educate people. It's how you act. All is not lost if you annoy some people when the intent was pure and right. Yeah. So this is me empowering everyone here to say, please don't be afraid. It's such a big topic, but you shouldn't be afraid. Reach out to any of us on this panel, reach out to PR companies, reach out to people at the top of their field and do good things. You're here already, which is half the step, so go do good work.
Thank you, Chris. That's great. I think at this stage, I would like to thank the panel, but before that, we will go to the floor to see if there's any questions. Opening it up to any questions for anyone. Well, in that case, we'll take the extra time to just, I mean, really this point of empowerment, education, right? And not being afraid to fail, I think, because like you're saying, just making the effort. So 3 E's, right? Education, effort, empowerment. I think is a really good takeaway on this topic. And yeah, I mean, Chris, I just admire so much all the work that you've done to really try and get the messages out and to share your journey, but also to help people to be allies. Because as we started the conversation was just that everybody thinks they're an ally, everybody wants to be an ally, but actually when put to the test, so to speak, or be in a situation where you can be an ally, people are afraid, they don't know what to do. So I think it's just kind of getting to those next steps. Any final thoughts? Gavin, Alessandra, anyone?
Go ahead.
Please, Alessandra.
I think the education bit, it's important. And, you know, it is relatively easy to think, oh, we have no obvious problem, or nobody has told us that we've done any harm, so we are okay. Well, maybe that's not good enough. So, you know, do keep on educating yourself. There are lots of resources out there. You know, there are people that do this as part of training, you know, and then maybe you need to parse with some money, which is not such a bad thing for such an important topic. But even if you are not able to do that, there are, you know, there is a lot of information out there. You may have to distinguish some of the least sort of authentic or valuable information, but if you speak to any of us, I'm sure that we can share loads of the valuable, good information. And I think that, you know, allyship and the broader sort of diversity inclusion is a journey, is not a one-off. You haven't done it, tick the box, put it on the shelf and forget about it. It's continuous improvement. And after all, you know, this is an industry that it's all about people.
That is true. That is true. Gavin, final thoughts?
Just I'm a firm believer that in anything, and I think it just ties in very well with allyship, is listening to people. It's an industry that's all about people, and as I said before, is making sure that that internal customer, if you like, of that's making things happen, they have the voice, but we're not just listening for the sake of listening. It's actively listening, but also then acting on what we can. Some things take longer than others, you know, and they do, to change, but some things are just small changes that if you actually listen and care, you can do them. I suppose that's the thing, and I just think that's my take on it.
That's a great point. Chris, any final thoughts to wrap it up?
Yeah, I think the last thing I'll add on, and I kind of touched on it earlier, is if you have made the steps to do a campaign and focus on diversity and inclusion internally, that's amazing. How you present it internally is so key as well. I have a huge ick about lunch and learns, which I will go off on a rant about, but asking employees to give up their lunch break to learn about something makes it negative. It should be created a safe space for anyone to join. It should not be mandatory. You should go, look, if you want to be interested in this, be interested. Come on your own accord. During working hours, you can get an hour off. That is the intent that businesses should be doing. How you implement it in your workforce is key. So if you've done all the work and then you make it an out-of-hours thing or a lunchtime thing, you just negate all the work you're doing. So always think about just every little detail and show actions speak louder than words. So I know I said language matters, and it does, but the actions and how you implement it matter just as much.
Right. Well, that's a nice way to conclude also, is back to that piece of culture and creating a culture where people feel included. So I thank you all so much for coming today. I'm really impressed with the engagement. You all seem like you're listening very intently, and we're grateful for that. And to thank our wonderful panel, Chris, Gavin, Alessandra. Give them a big hand of applause. Great. If anybody has questions but they didn't want to make it in front of the whole group, please come up after. Thank you.